My name is Kira Bo. As it was just mentioned, I'm the Education Policy Lead for Oxfam, and I'm based in Copenhagen, Denmark, which is why it's very dark around me because it's we're getting close to the shortest days of the year. Um, so the world is in a state of crisis. Education is in a state of crisis. Decades of gain in education access, completion, quality may very well be swept aside due to COVID-19, both the COVID-related school closures, but also the economic crisis that is already beginning to impact countries around the world, including in Africa. COVID is not just a health crisis or an education crisis, though. It is also an inequality crisis. Children of the wealthiest have had online teaching through the school closures. They've had access to private tutors, close virtual contact with their teachers. The children of the poorest have had none of that. This is a lost year, and many, mainly girls, will never again enter a schoolroom. When we talk about this, it sounds like we may just be talking about the poorest countries in the world, but in fact, this is the case for many countries, including my own. Maybe not that children won't come back to school, but that there is a vast disparity between how the wealthy or the children of the wealthy have done through this crisis and how the children of poorer families. My country is one of the countries in the world with the best access to internet, and yet access to internet is a reason why about 15% of children have not had proper access to homeschooling through the school closures in the first few months of the crisis. So while this is a crisis, I don't want us to be defeated. It is a crisis that we have some power over ourselves. Hugh talked in his intervention about these three mountains. So to stay in that metaphor, we have the mountain climbing gear that we need. And the question is whether we're willing to put in the effort needed to scale those mountains. We can impact the decisions that are being made right now in governments and multilateral institutions around the world. These are decisions about budget, about investments, about what is important, about what to prioritize. And obviously, sitting in this room, we all agree that there's nothing that could be more important than education. We know that education is not only the silver bullet for economic prosperity for the individual, education can make societies more equal, more democratic, more resilient to challenges such as COVID-19 in the future, but also other challenges. It also makes societies healthier and more prosperous. But that requires that governments and those in power see that value. And that's where you all and we all have a role to play. We have to convince them. We have to make them see how vital it is that education budgets are not cut due to economic austerity measures or due to debt servicing, as several have mentioned. We have to make politicians in donor countries see that now is not the time to cut aid budgets, as we're already seeing countries do, particularly the UK and the announcement that they have made over the last few weeks. And we have to make those in power and the huge multilateral institutions see that cuts to healthcare and education is not how you bring countries out of an economic crisis. We have a voice and we have a role to play in convincing them of that, those in power. So at Oxfam, we work with allies and partners in fighting the global structures that push countries to cut education budgets. We want true debt relief. We work every day to create global tax bodies that can ensure that money earned in African countries is taxed in those countries and that tax havens are abolished. We want progressive taxation, yes, but that's not enough because even if money stayed in the country, there's no guarantee that it will actually be spent on the right things. So we don't just need aid. We don't just need debt relief. We don't just need progressive taxation. We do need all of those, but we also need progressive spending. And yes, education is the best way to spend your money, but education is not simply education. Or maybe put a different way, all education is not equal. So not only does Oxfam's and allies and partners have to use all our power to fight cuts to education, we also have to fight for education budgets and the money to education set aside by countries and by donors to go to the places and people where the money will do the most good. That's in good, quality, free public education for all, not private education for the few. So there are fights yet to be won, but you already have the tools. We know this. So thank you again for the invitation to speak to you, and congratulations on all that you do.